Hello, I'm the Game Professor.
And I'm Jimmy.
And welcome to Games is Lit 101. This is something that I'm going to be trying to do once a month from here on out, where we look at some kind of adaptation to or from video games. This is my wife, and she's joining me for this one. So, in this case, we watched the Silent Hill movie, not the second one that I don't dare to see, but I heard it was very bad. The first one. Personally, I've played the first two Silent Hill games and absolutely loved both of them.
I played about half an hour of the second one because he made me last Halloween. What did I make you play or watch?
Oh no, I forget what you made me do. Oh no.
Was it the VR thing?
It was the VR thing. I tried that Until Dawn spin-off for the PSVR. I wanted to actually upload that to the channel, but the recording didn't work. Well, I have some degree of Silent Hill experience with at least what a lot of people would argue were the two good ones, I suppose. And, you know, she's got a bit less, but tried. So, we want to talk about the first Silent Hill movie, how it worked as a film, how it worked as an adaptation, just kind of what it was, explore that a little bit. So the Silent Hill movie follows a woman named Rose, who's taking her daughter Sharon to a town called Silent Hill, which has been abandoned for some time because her daughter is seeing this town in her dreams, and she just wants to figure out what's going on there, and of course then it devolves into Silent Hill shenanigans, all sorts of stuff going wrong, lots of weird creepy monsters trying to kill them, and eventually cult stuff, but we'll be getting to that in a bit. So, for now, we just want to talk about what the movie did right, because the first half of the movie was perfect.
Having only played a little bit of Silent Hill, the thing that really stood out to me was, like, how cool the environment was and how on point the tension was, and I just got really excited seeing, like, the mist and her, like, exploring this, like, ghost town. Then when Rose was, I think she was searching for Sharon and like, running around scared, like you do in horror games. Just the way the set was designed, it really felt like a video game, not in, like, a cheap copy way, but, like, in just a throwback kind of way. Like, the camera angles were limited and always kind of showing her and behind her, never, like, what was ahead. And where she was running was kind of, like, railroaded and narrow, and it was just a really cool environment, and yeah, the tension was good. Yeah, and I, like, horror movies, I'm very, very picky with. I don't like jump scares. I know they're necessary sometimes. I hate gore. I like the tension, the slow build, something that sticks with you afterwards, like Slender Man or something like that. And so this was just perfect. It was just tense and kind of creepy and scary, but not, like, throwing jump scares and gross monsters and mutilation in your face. So,
for the first while, at least.
At first.
Throughout that whole first half, I just kept an eye out for symbolic elements, because Silent Hill 2, I admit, I don't remember Silent Hill 1 all that incredibly well, but Silent Hill 2 is famous for basically everything in it being representative of something. Like in Silent Hill 2, the town is just straight up like a mindscape of its protagonist, and I loved that about it. And so I was watching in this movie for symbolic elements, and at first there seemed to be a whole lot of them. In this first half, there were some exceptions, like I don't know what the beetle things that ate people would mean, and Pyramid Head showed up for, as far as I can tell, no reason other than just he's iconic and cool, and I mean, he has a cool design and stuff, cool. So yeah, I get it, but, you know, not really for a purpose in the story, I guess.
He was there such a short amount of time. Like, he made a few appearances, and he felt really out of place, but yeah, he's still cool.
He showed up once to be scary, and another time to, like, rip a woman's skin off. That was...
I didn't look.
Yeah, that was a little... Oh, I don't know, just kind of unnecessary and weird and out of place, but anyway, point being, aside from stuff like that, like, we had this, you know, a mother going into this town to look for her child, which I thought was an interesting change. They kind of, like, they added some other stuff in about motherhood and the relationship between a mother and a child and stuff that wouldn't have been in the original game, considering it was a dude in the game. But they kind of made that stuff work, and, like, one of the first monsters that attacked her were these weird ash monster baby things making baby crying sounds, and, like, it was creepy and relating to what was going on a symbolic level, and, like, I liked that. Again, just the first half, I was very excited, because one of the things that I hate that video game adaptations tend to do is take, like, a bit of inspiration from the game, but not actually think much about atmosphere or story or meaning or anything like that. When they do the adaptation, they just do their own thing. And this one, for the first half or so, seemed like it was almost just perfect, like spot on. This was a Silent Hill movie, and I loved it. And I wish that it lasted for longer than that first half, because man, does it go off the rails and take the rails with it after that. And since we're going to be talking about the second half of the movie now, we're getting into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it and want to experience incredible frustration, then feel free to watch it yourself before watching the rest of this. But for now, spoilers. So, that second half.
Cults suck! It just...
They do.
I mean, okay, you gotta use them in lower level Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. That's just classic fodder. But as soon as cults came in, it's like, this is so uninteresting. Everything they built up with all the mystery, it's just like, oh, a cult did it. It's just a cult. And all that tension was gone, and it just stopped being cool and interesting, and...
There is really there's something about taking this big supernatural mystery and then just reducing it down to like, yeah, it's because these stupid people did bad things. Like, it's... I mean, I can sort of get it, like, it could be an interesting backstory maybe, but it really just takes what it was building and makes it less interesting.
And then it told all the backstory of, what was the kid's name?
That was such a... oh, gosh.
It was a weird name.
Oh, no. Why am I forgetting? Alessa.
Alessa.
Yeah.
It took the whole backstory with Alessa and the demon thing, and just, like, we probably should tell you this, so here, have it. Instead of, like...
That's such a bad scene.
They could have, like, slowly, like, given us that information through, like, they had different ways they could have distributed that with, like, the drawings could have had some aspect of it, and they just kind of stopped with that whole drawing thing. I loved the drawing thing. It was, like, collectibles, and then...
It is so much like, because we were talking about how they kind of nailed the feel of a video game and an homage to the games it was based on. And like I said, I don't remember the first Silent Hill quite well enough to know exactly how they did this, but that's a video game thing, to like give backstory information in little bits. And like, I guess that probably got more popular after like BioShock and such, so I don't know, maybe that wasn't a thing that the first Silent Hill did, but that's a perfect way to do it in a way that fits, works well, and is related to video game stuff. And they... instead just did a scene where she explained it in a dream, and it was really weird and bad.
And Sharon was just this random little good piece put into a, like, taken off the... Oh, that just made no sense.
It didn't make any sense, no. They tried to explain everything, but there were bits that we were just like, wait, how did that work, though? And they were like, magic.
That's one of the problems with info dumps, in my opinion. Like, if you're giving little details here and there, it's like, oh, well, we didn't get the full picture. Maybe we missed something. When you give an info dump, it's like, this is everything explained. But there's so many holes that it just feels like you didn't think of them, which they probably didn't.
That's probably how it went, yeah.
And also the whole last bit with all the body horror. I hate, like, mutilation and body horror and, like, violence porn. It's just... it's cheap, it's uninteresting, it's gross, and that whole last scene was so unnecessary, and it just felt like someone had some repressed anger with a mother figure or something. I don't know.
I agree entirely. I don't have a problem with gore, personally, but, like, I want it to be used in a way that, like, makes sense with the movie, and... you know, is creative maybe or something, like a movie like The Thing, super gory, but man, like, I'm all on board for that. This was just kind of, you know, just at the last second, it just decided to turn into this big, bloody mess of insanity, and...
it lasted forever.
It lasted a long time.
It was so long.
Yeah, it was like barbed wire flying all over the place, and like going through people, and like weird, like it's unsettling. It's really squicky for me, which I guess is kind of the point, but like it just didn't feel like it had a place here. It just came in at the end to give a fantastical, gory ending to the movie, and like it just really didn't work for me.
Another thing that really weirded me out was when they were killing the cult leader, whatever, and the barbed wire like went up between her legs. It just felt rapey, like tentacle porn kind of thing, and that combined with the child rape from earlier, which we didn't mention.
Yeah, we didn't mention. We'll talk about it in a bit, though. But yes, no, I agree. Weirdly, and like not even like Alien has a whole bunch of like uncomfortable, like rapey imagery and stuff, but again, that's like a thing that movie is trying to do, is to make people, and for that matter specifically men, uncomfortable in that way. And that's interesting. Just kind of making a movie about women and girls and motherhood and then having weird barbed wire rape, is just really squicky and weird, and I'm not on board with that. It just didn't.
It's super uncomfortable.
Yeah, that whole last bit just. I mean, the movie had already gone off the rails by that point. For that matter, we had the weird like them burning up Sybil, the police officer character, who was a cool character, and I hate it when movies kill people for no reason other than, well, someone's got to die now, and they did, and did it in a weird way so that we could make sure to see the details of her burning up, and it was. I don't know. By that point, it just seemed to devolve into torture porn, and it just wasn't interesting.
Yeah, like, we already knew they burned people that way. We'd seen it in the backstory. There was no reason for that to happen.
Yeah, but, you know, gotta kill some people and make some blood and stuff, I guess. I don't know, it was dumb.
Yeah. And after the whole first part where it just felt like it really got Silent Hill, and it was just so on point, like, I don't know why they would just stray so much from it in the second half.
Well, that's kind of the problem with this one, and the problem I have with it is it didn't super.
What?
It did a bit. I only remember the first Silent Hill so well, so I had to like look up and refresh my memory on exactly what the story was. But I went into this thinking mostly of Silent Hill 2, and thinking, oh, so the town is actually this like mindscape representative of of her psychological issues and stuff. The first game wasn't that, though. That was apparently just the second game, which also is the only one that doesn't fit into the canon of Alessa and stuff like that, but like the story about the cult, like they made some changes, mostly that Alessa's mother in this movie was like a tragic figure who had given her daughter up as per the cult's demands, but not actually wanted to, whereas in the games she was just as abusive, and some stuff like that, and I don't think the cult played like as major a role in the story as it happened in the Silent Hill game, mostly backstory, but like it was a very faithful adaptation of the story, aside from a few, the changing of the main character's gender, the level of involvement the cult had in the story itself, and of course Sean Bean, who we haven't mentioned because he's pointless. We just kind of cut back to him doing some research and then cut back to Silent Hill. If you cut out all of his parts, it wouldn't matter at all. But like I said, my main problem with a lot of video game adaptations is that they don't seem to respect the video game as source material, that they just kind of take some inspiration from it and then make their own movie. So when this movie went so off the rails in its second half, that's what I thought was going on. And then looking into it more and remembering what happened in the first Silent Hill game, it wasn't really that. It actually was pretty faithful. It just was really bad.
So did the game handle it better? Or, like, what happened there?
I think so. Like, I don't remember feeling this much, like, weird dissonance with the game. But again, it's been a little while. I played it all with my cousin in, like, a marathon. I think I just don't remember it super well. I don't think it went this far off, in any case. Which is the weird thing about this. Like, the movie adapts the story surprisingly faithfully for a movie based on a video game. Much more so than most video game movies I can think of, at least that are made in America. But the Warcraft movie, maybe being an exception, adapted the book pretty well from what I understand. But it does, at some point, completely abandon the feeling and the tone of Silent Hill in a way that still astounds me. Even though it's technically faithful to the events of the story of the first Silent Hill, the first half feels like Silent Hill. Like, I've only ever really seen video game adaptations where it seems like they get the source material or they don't. And for any other adaptation too, like you can tell that the person the Last Airbender movie as an example doesn't get The Last Airbender. But I've never seen a movie that seems to perfectly understand where it's coming from and get its source material so well, and then halfway through, not. Just at all. It completely loses whatever made it feel and seem like a good adaptation of Silent Hill, even though it was accurate to the story. It's baffling to me, and I don't understand, but for me at least, it ruined it all. The ending of Mass Effect 3 was terrible. I say still play Mass Effect 3. Like, it was a really good game, and that's not enough to ruin what it accomplished up to the last 10 minutes, but this ruined the rest of it for me. Mm-hmm. Like, it made it so that the part that was good was leading up to nothing, and just like it turned into a frustrating experience. One that I enjoyed like thinking about and ranting about. We talked about it for ages afterwards, just frustrated at it, and that was enjoyable, but like it makes it so that I can't say like, oh, the last part's bad, but the first half is real good and it's worth it. I just have to say like the last part ruins it all.
Honestly, I would watch the first half again, but I would never say, watch the whole movie. The first part makes up for the second part.
And we can't do this without mentioning either just some of the weird changes they did make. Like she mentioned, child rape. It's just, it didn't need to be there. It was just this, early on we see this guy like tied up in barbed wire and we're like, oh, I wonder what his deal is. And then later we find out that that was a guy who raped the little girl in that bathroom stall that he was tied up in. And like, it was a super brief little thing. It's like the movie was just like, oh, it's not enough that her cult like hated her and ridiculed her and burned her alive. There's gotta be this guy that raped her too. Like that is not something that you just stick in a movie.
And it was just an afterthought, which is, really common for women. That's a very common thing to just, make her story a little bit darker, a little bit tougher, just have her be raped. And that's just part of her backstory.
Yeah, that you don't talk about it that flippantly. Like, that's not a thing you could do.
Then you take it to children, and, it's bad enough with women, it's real bad with kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a thing that you just throw in. And they did. And you know what, among other things, like they had the changes regarding her mother were fine and interesting. The changes regarding the main character, interesting, I liked that. But there was the pyramid head thing, there was the weird bit where she's just like, oh, you just need to tell them the truth, sow enough doubt into their minds that I can go into their sanctuary. That's not how cults work. I was surprised to be reminded of the fact that Silent Hill 2 is the only one that really embraces that whole mindscape thing, and much like the Silent Hill games themselves, Silent Hill just works better that way, honestly. In my experience, at least. Like, that seems to be when it's the most interesting and most compelling. And this movie, I hate to say it, but this movie's faithfulness to the original game kind of messed that up. It did the whole Silent Hill is a real town where real stuff happens instead of a thing that's representative of these problems, and that's just, it's a lot less interesting, and it unfortunately gave the movie opportunities to delve into things that even the games really didn't in terms of the body horror and torture porn and stuff like that, that really just made it worse. It's frustrating for me, because theoretically the more faithful the better in video games, because we don't get that very often. That's one of the bigger problems right now. So, I don't know, I was very disappointed by this movie, and I think that it would have worked a lot better had it embraced that more symbolic and metaphorical tone than had it decided to do what it did. So that was us watching Silent Hill, and man, that was a frustrating experience, but we got some interesting discussion out of it at least. So
and I got popcorn.
Yeah, could have been worse. So, like I said, this is something I'm going to be trying to do monthly. This is a new format, of course, that we're trying out, so feel free to talk about it in the comments. Let me know what you think about the whole, dialogue thing as opposed to structured video thing. And, in any case, we'll be doing this again sometime next month, one way or another. We've been talking about a few possibilities for what it is going to be. I think the Animal Crossing movie might actually...
I'm so excited.
We'll find out. It's going to be fun one way or another. So feel free to talk in the comments about what you think about this segment and how it was presented and stuff like that. And we'll see, how we can make it good next time as well. So, of course, this is, Games is Literature. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out some of the other videos or my big, long analysis episodes. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And if you really enjoy what the channel is doing, please consider checking out the Patreon, because I could use the support. And, yeah, that's that. So, it's been fun. I'm the Game Professor.
And I'm Jimmy.
And we'll see you next time. Class dismissed.